Okay, so have you ever seen a painting and it's like, it just grabs you? Like it's not just colors on a canvas, it's like a feeling, a memory almost.
Hmm.
That's kind of how I felt when I saw Memories of the Well by Bob Camblin.
Oh, yeah.
It's like this faded photograph, like a
Mm.
glimpse into the past. Um, a backyard maybe, greens and browns, all kind of softened with time.
Yeah, I see that.
And there's this well standing tall and strong. Next to it, there's this little, maybe a garage or like a shed.
Hmm.
And then there are these figures, but they're so faint, almost see-through, like they're part of the air itself.
Yeah,
It's really something.
it is.
It's like you're catching a dream just as it's about to disappear.
Right. Yeah, that sense of the ephemeral that you're talking about, I
Yeah.
think, is really what grabs you right away with that painting. It's interesting. The material you've sent for this deep dive, it's quite extensive.
Yeah, right. It's a lot.
We've got the YouTube video exploring the painting.
Right.
We've got Camblin's own quotes. We've got his biography. And then we have excerpts from books that discuss his work.
Right.
So it's quite a bit to dive into.
Yeah, it is. And that's what I'm excited about. What we're going to try to do today, based on, what you sent us, is really unpack those layers of meaning and memories of the well.
Hmm.
See how they connect to Camblin's artistic philosophy,
Hmm.
his life, the things that he went through. And ultimately, I want to give you a deeper understanding of memory itself and how things fade, how they persist,
Right.
and really what art means, as seen through Bob Camblin's eyes.
Right.
So how do we even start unpacking this visual?
Well, let's start with how Camblin frames the scene. Notice how the foliage on either side sort of curves inward,
Yeah,
almost as if the landscape itself is kind of embracing what's going on in the middle of the painting.
right.
Then above that, you have the sky, and it feels really open and airy.
Yeah,
It's like a soft backdrop to everything happening below.
yeah,
And then your eye is naturally drawn down to that well, the cylindrical well.
right.
It's standing next to what looks like a pretty simple garage.
Yeah, or a shed.
Kind of an outbuilding.
Yeah.
Actually. And then, of course, we can't forget about those figures kind of in the middle ground, those ghostly, almost translucent figures.
Right, yeah.
And it's been suggested that the figure on the far left could even be Camblin himself.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's like he's becoming one with the passage of time.
Right. And it's interesting, you mentioned the actual location of this. One of the books you sent mentions that this might be a backyard on Roxton Street in Houston.
Oh, right.
So it's like this hazy, dreamlike image is actually rooted in a real place.
Yeah.
And that adds another layer to it for me.
Yeah, and that grounding, I think, is really important. It's taking this kind of ephemeral feeling and rooting it in something very specific.
Right.
And, the well itself, it's not just a well in this context.
Mm.
In the YouTube video and some of the books, they talk about how it becomes this symbol, maybe a symbol of a wellspring of memories
Yeah.
or wellspring of family history.
Yeah.
Something profound.
Right.
Something that has this real lasting power.
Right. And those figures, they're almost see-through, like woven into the trees and the greenery.
Yeah.
It's like they're part of the environment itself. One of the books even suggests this could be a family portrait.
Right.
And the idea is like the boundaries between who they are and this special place, it's blurred.
Hmm. It's all blended together.
Yeah.
And the way he composes this painting, the vegetation, it almost acts like curtains on a stage,
Yeah.
and it really focuses your attention on the well in the center. It's a very deliberate choice, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's very deliberate. And then there's that ethereal quality. The way those ghostly figures are layered, it gives you this feeling that past and present are existing at the same time.
Yeah.
It's not a sharp, defined image. It's more like this fluid, dreamlike realm where different times are all kind of swirling together.
Mm-hmm.
The overall feeling is so quiet, so reflective.
Yeah.
And there's a hint of nostalgia there, too.
Yeah, I definitely get that. That quiet reflectiveness, it makes me think about the artistic traditions that Camblin might be drawing from.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about artists who often placed figures within domestic settings, Andrew Wyeth comes to mind.
Right.
There's a similar feeling there, I think, of home being more than just a place. It's like it's part of your identity.
Mm-hmm.
But where Wyeth presents this stark realism, Camblin introduces this ethereal quality. It makes you wonder if he's saying that maybe memory itself isn't a concrete snapshot.
Right.
Maybe it's more fluid and dreamlike.
Yeah, That's a really good point. And this idea of memory painting that comes up in one of the books,
Right.
these hazy, semi-transparent layers that give you that feeling of remembering something. Like you said, it's not a perfect snapshot. It's fuzzy around the edges.
Exactly, and that really clicks for me with this piece. It's like he's he's capturing that very feeling. In fact, the book mentions that he's connected to some contemporary narrative painters that explore that same sensation,
Right.
that feeling of half-forgotten moments.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because it makes me think about how this work fits in with other art movements.
Uh-huh.
His style is more atmospheric,
Right.
it's less defined, but I see hints of regionalism or even folk art in there,
Oh, yeah?
like Grant Wood. You
Yeah.
know, there's that focus on everyday life, but it's seen through this dreamy lens.
It is. Regionalist art was often about familiar local scenes,
Right,
and Camlin is showing us that familiar scene, but it's tinged with memory,
right.
like it's been filtered through time.
Yeah, exactly. And the figures in the landscape are kind of blended together. It's almost surreal. It makes me think of artists like Leonora Carrington or Marc Chagall. His approach is more subtle, though, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely more understated, less overtly surreal. But that blurring between what's real and what's in the subconscious,
Yeah.
it's definitely there.
Right. Yeah. And if we look at that one structure that well,
Right.
that stands out in the painting,
Yeah.
it makes me think about how Edward Hopper or even Wyeth might focus on a barn or a silo.
Mm.
It's not just a building, it's like it's imbued with this symbolic weight.
Yeah.
And here it could represent sustenance,
Yeah.
memory, ancestry,
Right.
this deep, unchanging source.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting because the YouTube material brings in some fascinating Eastern philosophical ideas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where they talk about the Zen concept of impermanence,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
mojo, and how the fleeting nature of the figures in the painting really speaks to that.
Right, that nothing stays the same.
That's right, that everything is in flux. And they use this great metaphor of water flowing and changing course
Hmm.
to represent how our memories are never really fixed.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
like if you try to hold water in your hands, it slips through your fingers.
No, it changes.
It leaves only an impression behind.
Right, and then they connect that to hexagram 48 from the I Ching,
Oh, wow.
which is the well.
Right.
And it's described as this deep, constant source of nourishment and wisdom. It's like that well in the painting, you know?
Yeah.
It's the stable presence while everything around it, the figure, the landscape, even our memories of those things are changing.
Exactly. And Jing represents that reliable foundation, the I Ching,
Huh.
that unchanging source.
Yeah. And that contrast between the well that endures and the figures that are fading.
Right.
It's so powerful. The YouTube video even quotes Camblin himself. He says, "You never miss the water until the wells run dry." Wow.
It's really highlighting the significance of that constant source,
Mm-hmm.
whether it is memory connection to the past.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we don't realize how important those things are until they're gone.
Right. And it goes even deeper. They actually reference Lao Tzu,
Oh, wow.
who says, the softest thing in the world overcomes the hardest thing in the world. Like how water can eventually wear away stone. And they connect that to how memory, even though it seems fragile, can reshape how we understand the past.
Right. It's like this subtle but powerful force.
Yeah, exactly.
And, the Taoist idea of not resisting the flow of time is also really relevant here.
Right.
The YouTube video points out that we're constantly reinterpreting the past through the lens of the present.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe those blurred figures, they're actually representing
Right.
that constant process of reevaluation.
Yeah, like our understanding of what was is always shifting. So memories of it's not just a still image, it's this exploration of time and memory and the power of places and symbols.
It is. It's a really rich piece.
It is. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about Bob Camblin himself.
Okay.
The biography you sent describes him as an iconoclastic and enigmatic artist. Iconoclastic meaning he challenged the rules,
Mm-hmm.
which makes him even more interesting to me.
Yeah, he definitely, he went his own way. He was born in Oklahoma in 1928, and he got his early training at the Kansas City Art Institute,
Mm-hmm.
which gave him a strong foundation. And he even got a Fulbright scholarship to study in Italy,
Wow.
which I'm sure exposed him to all sorts of different artistic traditions and perspectives.
Right.
And then he starts teaching. sharing his knowledge at different universities,
Mm.
even at Rice University for a while.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it seems like he wanted to engage with the art world, you know,
Right.
and help other artists develop their own voices.
Yeah. And then in 1976, he makes a pretty unconventional decision.
Right.
He leaves academia to become a nomadic artist.
Yeah, he really did. He supported himself by selling his work and doing commissions, and he traveled all over
Yeah.
Italy, France, Mexico,
Right.
drawing inspiration from different cultures and landscapes.
It's interesting because that nomadic period really ties into the themes of impermanence and the passage of time that we see in the painting.
Absolutely.
He wasn't tied down to one spot.
Right.
He was always experiencing new places. The bio emphasizes that his art transcends the confines of traditional art criticism and commercialism.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he was trying to connect directly with the viewer's soul.
Yeah,
That's a pretty ambitious goal.
it is. And when you think about the themes of Memories of the Well,
Mm.
in the context of Camblin's bigger body of work, it all starts to connect.
Mm-hmm.
The bio talks about his interest in the cycle of life and metamorphosis.
Right.
You know, that idea of constant change and transformation.
Yeah.
It seems like that's a really central idea for him.
Yeah. And the collection of quotes you sent provides some really fascinating insights into how he thought. He said,
Right.
I cannot tell a lie to myself for very long. Find something in nature that completes you and then surrender.
Wow.
And that quote it feels so connected to that natural setting in the painting.
It does.
It's like he had this deep personal connection to that place.
Right. It suggests a very profound, almost spiritual connection to that specific scene.
Yeah.
As if that backyard was the key to some greater understanding for him.
Yeah. And then he talks about common sense and trying to have the perfectly average view so you can see the miracles on both sides of science and magic.
Right.
It's a really unusual way of looking at the world, isn't it?
It is.
Finding the extraordinary in the ordinary. And that's what he does in Memories of the Well.
Yeah.
He takes this simple backyard scene and turns it into something really profound.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It suggests a way of seeing that embraces both rational observation and wonder,
Right.
which could explain that slightly mystical feeling you get from the painting.
Yeah. The bio also mentions that he was very collaborative and that he sometimes even signed his work anonymous.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It makes me think about the blurred figures in the painting. Maybe it's not just a blurring with the environment, but a blurring of identities in general.
Mm-hmm. Like a merging of different
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, and even later on, he explores different styles, like the Muchas Volantes style,
Right.
which uses all these dots and dashes to create optical illusions.
Yeah.
It shows that he was always evolving,
Yeah.
always questioning how we see and interpret the world.
Always pushing the boundaries.
Yeah.
It's really impressive.
Yeah, and the excerpt from Earl Staley's writing gives us a more personal view. He describes Camblin as this gregarious storyteller.
Oh, wow.
And he mentions their shared studio, B&E Productions.
Right.
It shows that he wasn't this isolated figure,
Yeah.
He was part of a community.
Right.
He liked to share his creativity.
Humanizes him, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And in the excerpt from Incomplete Works Volume 1, they talk about how much he loved to read.
Oh, yeah.
Emerson, the I Ching haiku.
Wow.
It makes sense,
Yeah.
given how contemplative and symbolic his work is.
Mm-hmm.
And his fascination with the Uffizi Gallery and the Cappuccine catacombs in Italy is interesting, too.
Oh, yeah.
The excerpt talks about how those abstract figures in the catacombs really stuck with him.
Wow.
And it makes me think about those indistinct figures in Memories of the Well.
Yeah, it's like those visual memories seeped into his own work.
Right. And this is a key point, they say, that Camblin believed words could never fully capture the essence of art.
Right.
So any text in his paintings, it might be more about form than literal meaning.
Oh, interesting.
It's like he's telling us to look beyond the obvious and just engage with the experience.
Yeah. Which brings us back to you, the listener.
Right.
The YouTube video poses this really interesting question. What places from your past remain vivid in your mind? Are they fixed in detail or do they shift like the figures in this painting? If you were to paint a memory, what would be your well?
Wow. That's a lot to unpack.
Yeah,
But it's a good question. It's a really good question. It makes you think about your own memories.
it does.
And then the excerpt you sent called Pasted Text.
Right.
It talks about this idea of the backyard of the mind.
Yeah.
You know those private spaces where memories and loved ones all come together? It's about recognizing the importance of those internal landscapes.
Yeah. And it makes you consider that tension between presence and absence,
Right.
permanence and impermanence,
Right.
that the painting captures so well,
Wow.
and how that same tension exists in our own memories.
Yeah. What parts of our past feel solid
Right.
and what feels like it's always just out of reach.
Exactly. And they suggest that, in the painting, there might be certain elements from your own life that are like a constant source of reflection.
Right. So as you think about that, what images or ideas come to mind for you?
What strikes me is that duality that Camblin presents. The well, this permanent thing,
Right.
and then those fleeting figures.
Right.
It makes me think about how so much of memory is tied to anchors, like places or objects, but the details, the people involved, they can get hazy.
Right.
It's a really insightful observation about how memory works.
Yeah, it is. It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear that Memories of the Well is not just a pretty picture.
Right.
It's this deep exploration of memory and time and personal history, seen through Camblin's artistic vision. Those fading figures and that strong well, they really make you think about how fluid but persistent the past can be.
They do. And it leads to one final thought for you to consider. Think about a specific memory from your life, a vivid one. If you were to turn that memory into a painting, what would be the central element? Your personal well, so to speak. And what aspects would be fleeting and indistinct like those figures? And how does just thinking about that change how you see that memory?
That's a great question. It's a really great question to think about. Thanks for sending us all this material and for letting us take this deep dive with you.
Yeah, thank you.
It was really fascinating.
It's my pleasure.